What's up, Head Kick Radio listeners? We got everybody's favorite guest back in studio this week. Sitting down again with my boy, Kyle Moran.
What's up, everybody?
Dude, why don't you ever use your Instagram handle as your nickname? Do you?
No, I mean, nobody's going to call me that.
That's kind of like Batman.
Yeah, right? I don't know. I don't know why. It took me a long time to figure that out. I was like originally going to use that for one of my music aliases.
Oh, like your DJ name?
Yeah, from back in the day, but that kind of just died out, and now I just once I started jiu-jitsu, I saw the resemblance between the Kimura, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this for that reason.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, dude. So you got some big news.
Yeah, man, I finished my National Academy of Sports Medicine certified personal trainer exam, and I'm now a CPT, which is pretty cool. I feel as if I still need more education, so I signed up for the NSCA Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, so that way I can get something that's a little bit more geared towards athletes and strength and conditioning. I feel as if NASM was a good program, but it was pretty general, kind of gave you a pretty general overview of things and touched on a lot of different topics. And now I'm trying to dive deeper into the ones that I find the most interesting. And education's important. So the more I can get, the better.
Dude, that's freaking awesome. So talk about how, was it last podcast or the first podcast we did? Because this is podcast number 3 together.
It was the first one. And
you talked about wanting to do this because you realized when, we were in the gym doing jujitsu, and you said to me, even on the mats and, and sitting, hanging out a bunch of times, of like, hey, I want to be able to do this for, jujitsu athletes, wrestlers, kind of more of the combat sports. And now you've already been taking those steps. You're a madman in the gym, always in there working out. And then you've kind of evolved this and you've taken those steps. So explain the process of how long this course was, because just saying it sounds like, okay, like the guy just went online and took a test, but it was kind of like going to college. You had to do a whole coursework. Like, lay that out for the listeners.
Yeah, definitely. So it was, what was I, like the second or third guest? I was like early on that we recorded
You're
that
my
podcast.
Very first guest.
So that was almost a year ago that I made the mental decision that I knew I wanted to do strength and conditioning work with athletes in the grappling, wrestling, MMA world. But at that time, it was just an idea, and I had no idea what that entailed to actually get there. I still kind of feel like I have no idea what it entailed, but I know I'm taking the proper steps to get there. So last November, so what was that, like 4 months ago? 5 months ago now, I signed up for the NASM. They were running some type of deal where you could get it on like credit basically, but no interest, where they spread the payments out, because it's not cheap to do these certificates. It's like, I think that one was like $700. It's not cheap. So they spread the payments out, and I was like able to take the leap with that type of agreement. So I signed up, and I knew the NASM was a good and reputable company, and I still feel that way, definitely.
Well, there's only a few of them though, right?
There's a bunch of them, but you need something that's nationally accredited and widely recognized in the community, and the NASM certificate is one. There's a bunch of them. I just felt like that one kind of, at the time, had the material that I wanted to learn, and now that I'm a little bit deeper, I realize that there's other stuff that I'm interested in. If I could go back in time, I would still take it. But yeah, I would say like each cert is like a college course. Like one cert is like a 4-credit course in school. So they give you 6 months from signing up to study all of the material and then get ready for the final exam that you have to take, which is it's just like pass fail. But it's all based on that one exam. So you take quizzes and do assignments throughout the process, but those have nothing to do with the outcome of the course. Like, it's all based on this final. But I ended up doing it, and it only took me like 4.5 months to get it.
I was going to say, but you did it kind of like a college course where you set your own final date. You said, hey, which is last weekend, the weekend before, it's St. Patty's Day weekend, everybody. A couple of guys getting in here, staying over-caffeinated while half the country is out there already intoxicated, by noon. But you set a date, and you said, hey, I'm taking my test on this date, and you held yourself accountable to make sure you were completely ready to take that test.
Yeah, definitely. And
was that planned out from the beginning, or did you just say, hey, let me see how far I can get into this and then set a date? Or did you just think, I'm going to do this when I'm ready? Because I remember you setting a date.
Yeah, no, I did set a date. I did it on Instagram. I did it in a public fashion because I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to really need to kick me in the ass. It's accountability, right? That's what we all need in life is accountability. I feel as if that way. And I set it and really just solidified it. But what initially happened is I started the course. I started going through it. I'm kind of a research fiend. Some would say obsessive to a certain degree. So I was really I felt like I was hustling through the material and doing sometimes 2 or more chapters in a week just from reading and going through it. And the NASM structures a pathway for you that you can follow, and I was ahead of it. And then by the time I was like nearing the end and was able to better structure how long the remaining pieces would take me, especially that I knew how long the average chapter took to study and master the material, I was able to set that date, and then I did it, and then I was close to the original set date, but I had to delay it 1 week because I had to go home to visit family, which was totally fine. But I ended up
still
taking
had another month to complete it. So
exactly. Even from today, there's still another like month that I have available to me if I wouldn't have done it. But it's nice to have it out of the way because now I signed up for another one, and I'm just right back in.
How many chapters was it to get through?
22 chapters. It's a full-on hard copy textbook, and the next one that I got it's like maybe 1.5 times the other one.
So like when you're on chapter 18 and you're getting close, you're like, okay, I'm almost finished with this. Do you ever did you go back like to chapters 1, 2, 3, earlier chapters, and then like kind of just rehash some of this and study it and understand it more because you understood the later chapters? Can you do that on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, they give you a physical copy of the textbook, and there's online resources and whatnot. They make it pretty easy for you to go through it. You just have to be your own catalyst to study and to actually want to absorb that material. But it's like I knew I wanted to change my career eventually, and I feel like I'm on the right path to do that. And I don't know, I just feel like I'm pretty dedicated to that decision of wanting to get into the fitness community, specifically helping people with strength and conditioning for athletes and whatnot. And I am behind already because I didn't go to school for it, and I don't have a ton of experience, but I'm starting to gain it, and I know I have a knack for it. So it's like I have some catch up that I'm trying to do, and I'm aggressively studying and trying to get myself out there to make it happen and hopefully one day become credible in the field.
I got a few questions here on when you finished it. Did you feel like it was harder than anything you did in college, high school, like anything in a school structure?
No, not at all. I thought it was pretty simple. Like it takes work.
Is it simple because you felt like it came easy to because you're so interested in it, or was it simple because like you think a caveman could do it?
Yeah, no, I think it comes natural to me, and the type of I have a pretty damn good memory. And that a lot of it is built off of that. Plus, too, it's highly applicable to the stuff that I'm doing in my hobbies, right? Like with jiu-jitsu, with strength and conditioning, injury rehabilitation, movement practice, correcting all of the damage that I've done sitting at a desk working 9 to 5, right? Like understanding what that does to your body. So it was as if I'm reading the material and it's not abstract. I can point directly to something in my life where it's highly relevant. And that to me makes it easy to absorb material. That way I don't have to go over it over and over and over and repeat the information. If it's something that I can attach to a principle in life already, then it becomes something that I read once or twice and I know almost verbatim as to what was written. And then it makes going in and answering these questions, because they don't give you any study sheets. You're not allowed to study beforehand.
There's no practice tests or anything?
There's practice tests online, but it makes it easy to go through those practice tests, maybe get a question wrong, understand the right answer, review it once, and then I have it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you wanted to apply more the physical to it than just the book smarts to it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So when you're always in the gym, like while you're going through this course, were there parts where maybe you're doing an exercise, lifting something or maybe even stretching, that you're thinking like, hey, this pertains to this chapter I'm on right now? And did it help you conceptualize it more?
Yeah, well, one thing, okay, so this was at the end of the course. And mind you, as I was going through this course, I'm absorbing material from a ton of other people. Like the certification course is cool and all, but it is by no means the be all end all of knowledge. Like, it's cool. It's structured. It gives you an idea of the start to finish process of how you handle clients and program design and assessments, and even some of the kinetic chain and how certain things work for rehabilitation purposes, resistance training purposes, all sorts of stuff. It's very cool. But I also went to very well-known coaches to get my information to supplement that. Again, I'm at a deficit, I'm behind, so I need to absorb as much as I can. So I was reading stuff by Charles Poliquin, Christian Thibodeau, Dr. John Russin, all of these world-renowned strength coaches. So I was absorbing a ton of information. So it's coming in from all angles. Well, when I finished, it's almost obvious, but at the time it wasn't. I was too consumed with just passing the test. But the day I finished, I realized that the type of workouts that I were doing were very strength-based workouts. I was doing 4 to 8 rep range. I was doing push-pull supersets, so like a pressing exercise followed by a pulling exercise immediately. And I had just come off of a German volume training set of 10 sets of 6 pressing, so bench press followed by pull-ups, so 20 sets back to back to back to back to back. And I have been putting on muscle, but not at a super accelerated rate. And I realized that I was doing strength-based program, not a hypertrophy-based program, which is like 10 to 15 rep range. I mean, it varies based on person and muscle fiber dominance, but it was like a light switch went off where I was like, oh, holy shit. I realize now what I need to shift in my workouts. I've been doing this for 6 months. My body's probably adapted to this. I need to segue into a different style of training to keep my body guessing. This is something that before the class, I wouldn't have really known the difference between these two programs. A lot of the information came from like the Black Book of Training Secrets written by Christian Thibodeau and a bunch of articles that I read online from Charles and John Russin and whatnot. But it's just like through those 4 months, I realize this now. And now that I've switched the program, I'm like growing still, right? And I've like constantly been putting on weight, which is awesome. Just shows me that what I'm doing is working. But it's like one of those realizations I wouldn't have known if I wouldn't have started studying, you know? So it's already like, your question was, do I notice anything in the gym that I'm doing that this information is applied towards? Yeah, definitely. And that was a huge one for me. And it's like, it's one of those things where it should be obvious, and now it is, but that's how it is when you're first learning something. Like you get caught up in some details and you ignore almost the obvious ones. And I now realize that, and it's great because the workout's kicking my ass. And now if I prescribe this to somebody, I have experience with it. So it's just, it's like really is coming full circle. And like, look, I didn't have to go through 6 years of school to finally realize that some of the stuff that I'm learning is applicable in my daily life. Like this was a few months, you know. That's a quick turnaround.
Accelerated pace.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty fast turnaround.
You know, I if the listeners follow me on Instagram and stuff, they see that I have Audible now. Well, my first book off Audible was Ross Edgley. Do you know who he is?
Mm-mm.
So he did the Great British Swim, where he swam all around Great Britain, you know, so England and Scotland, and he did it in like 160 days. But he is somebody who did like exercise science somewhere over in England. He's a British guy, and he's written this book over the past 10 years of his life. He's only 33, and he's like lived with like different like Inuit kind of people, and like, you know, that, you know, wrangle bulls and different kind of things like that. Well, he also has this online, you know, so if you get the Audible version, he also has like this online like PDF that you can download, which is also a question I want to ask you in a little bit of like, one day do you plan on making your own kind of, you know, downloadable Audible or, you know, PDF book?
Yeah, right.
But anyway, he has like these different, you know, like everything from like nutrition to like workouts to like body weight stuff. Cause, you know, he also ran a marathon pulling a car, and he also did a triathlon pulling a tree. And he's done like all these like crazy feats,
ridiculous
and just
feats.
The dude's just an animal. Well, anyway, but like he has like four different things like on his scale. I want to say it's 4. So no matter what it is you're trying to do, you are either like trying to lose fat. So it's like one's for fat loss, one's for building strength, one's for hypertrophy. And then the other one is for cardio endurance.
Right.
And so like, he goes, whatever it is you're trying to do, like, here's your chart. And he has them like all in his PDF. And I'll show you this after the podcast.
Yeah.
Of he basically whatever, you know, so it's kind of like having a client that comes into the gym. It's like, hey, Kyle, I want to lose weight. or lose body fat. Can you help me with that? So like, for example, of his PDF, there's like, here's how, if you want to do this, here's how you lose body fat, or here's how, you build endurance or, hypertrophy.
Different plans, right. And how they're programmed.
Was the course kind of set up like that you did?
Yeah, a little bit. But the thing is it's a super structured program. It's almost like a brand, right? So you adopt this course and they teach you their way of handling this task, training an individual. General population is typically like what this was geared towards. So there were things that I did not agree with, right? There were like pathways. They put everybody through a very similar pathway. It's called the OPT model. And it's like stages. And while I agree that there are stages to this, like you're not going to throw an advanced lifter doing the same things as a beginner and vice versa. Like maybe the same types of movements, like because there's a handful of patterns that humans are capable of, but you are going to definitely treat people where they lie along the spectrum of brand new day one to sensei, and the truth, like the fact is, like there are some things in there that I don't agree with because I've been listening to people who have like put hundreds of Olympic athletes on podiums or have dealt with professional athletes, and it's just, I'm going to take their word and in their cited research over this like baked model, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. It's very like practical. It works. It's science backed.
But it just allows no creativity.
Yeah, there's just very little room for creativity and very little room for the novel tactics that I do like to use. And some of the stuff is like super tried and true that has withstand this test of time. This was just like, again, it gave you a general overview if you had no idea, and it was great to have that and understand it, but there's definitely better resources out there than just doing that. But you need it for credibility. I mean, like some gyms require that you have that exact certification if they'll let you work there. I realized though through like one of the chapters, they talk about different places you can work, right? Within the fitness community, like big box gyms, right? Like a LA Fitness or a Lifetime, like they're gonna feed you clients, but
then there's like that compared to like the bare bones gyms, and
or performance facilities,
CrossFit gyms,
yes, exactly. So they kind of like break that down. Like I didn't understand the clear breakdown of that. I'm sure there's articles online that you can find and read about it as well, but it was just there was things in there where they educate you on it. I realized through that I was definitely interested in the performance side of things, right? So it's kind of like are the classes that you take in your first semester of school the most applicable? No, but if you're an undecided major or like I'm going to do something in the health field, but I don't know what the hell I'm going to do, over time, those classes guide you into making the decision that you want to make, and then you can become this specialized. Like the biggest problem, right, in a lot of things is early over specialization, right? You choose something early on in life and you hyper focus on the skills required to become an expert at that task. But because of it, you don't understand even the basics of other tasks. Like who was it? Like LeBron James played football in high school or something like that. I can't remember who, but it was like some big basketball player. Obviously basketball is not my sport of choice, but it's like some big basketball player played football in high school. Well, okay, is that directly applicable to his basketball career? You would think not, but because he learned how to work as a team in a completely different mindset, completely different game, it allows him to be creative and be a star in his own field, right? So that's kind of like again, would I go back and retake that course? Absolutely not. But it definitely pointed me in the direction of the things that I'm most interested in.
Yeah. And I want to remind the listeners, because I believe we may have talked about this. I've had thousands of conversations since then. But you didn't play any sports in high school. You just lifted weights, correct?
Yeah, I tried out for football and I got my shit rocked, and then I was done with that. But I really liked it because of the camaraderie, and what I liked about it was being in the weight room. And I did, spend a lot of time in the weight room. And my weight room training actually started before that because my dad was big into lifting weights, and he brought me into the weight room early on and started teaching me how to train. And like kind of have over the past couple of months have been realizing that I kind of like grew up in the weight room.
Yeah.
So that's definitely training is my passion for sure when it comes to it. I just think feats of athleticism are super fucking cool. So I want to help people get better at that.
See, and that's what I wanted to talk about for a hot second here is that most people that I sit down with and that we get to meet in the gym, no matter who you are, maybe if you go to work and you're having these athletic conversations, whether you're talking about sports, mostly every time you talk to these people, they have some like background, like they grew up, maybe they played high school basketball, maybe they just played football, baseball, it doesn't matter. But like, it always seems like somebody just did something and rarely do you get, or does anybody, let alone me, get to meet somebody who just lifted weights their whole life and highly enjoyed that. Like they always played something else. And it's really fascinating because you come at it with such a different angle on the mindset aspect of like, hey, this is why you lift. And then you later got into the sport of jiu-jitsu. So that I kind of talk about like, did you do it more when you were younger because you're like, this is for longevity, or you just like, I don't want to be small? Like what kind of got you really rocking besides, just seeing your dad do it?
Oh,
just didn't want to get picked on? Didn't want to be bullied? What was going on?
No, it's funny because it didn't really hike up until I was like 22 years old. I was like 22 and I was like 118 pounds. Okay. I'm 5'8". So I'm not tall, but I was very skinny. 118 pounds is like if on a BMI scale, I was anorexic. You know what I mean? And I wasn't, obviously, but I just didn't understand what it took to keep weight on. Well, anyways, one day I was I had a head full of acid and I was tripping with a couple of friends, and this girl ended up coming over and some commercial was on, I don't know, but she ended up making a comment about abs and like asked to like see everybody's for some reason. And I like ended up, I was the smallest one in the room, which was typically the case, 118 pounds, 5'8", 22 years old. And she was like making fun of me because I was skinny, and she was not, aggressive about it, right? Like she was definitely just like poking fun at me, but I was tripping so hard that it like really got into my head.
It got deep in the core.
Yeah, and I went out the next day and I bought like nice shoes for the gym and like all the like anti-sweat gear and shit like that, and went to the nicest gym in my area and signed up. And then that fueled me for the first couple of years, like that specific incident, because if you've ever tripped before, you know that things that happen during your trip can have a huge impact on you in the rest of your life. So I was definitely used that to fuel me. And over time, it shifted from that like weird angst kind of like, I'll show you mentality to, okay, to remembering why I actually enjoyed it, right? The fact that I was raised in the weight room and that I spent a lot of high school like training in the gym and stuff like that. And it just kind of like lost touch with it. It's why it was so easy in that moment for me to pull the trigger to go back, because I wasn't diving in for the first time. I had already been there a bunch, and I was kind of like rehatching an old good relationship that I had with training. So like in a weird way, I owe her a thank you, but I'm not fueled by that anymore. Now, because of jiu-jitsu, I'm interested in performance. So I have a true passion and interest. I'm not fueled by hate, right, for it. And I've accumulated a handful of injuries, which I've been able to deal with pretty sufficiently through not my tactics, but the stuff that I've researched. I feel as if I'm definitely putting my time investment into the right buckets, because I am feeling so much better than beforehand. So I've also like, not only am I interested in strength and conditioning, but it's also the idea of using it in a way that helps you with injury prevention, and realizing that recovery, muscle isn't built in the gym. That's where you break down the muscle. You build the muscle outside of the gym in your recovery. So what are you doing in that recovery? That's what I want to know.
Let's jump into recovery here.
Yep.
Hit hard on the segment of recovery. Where do you start? Like if you're looking across talking to me, which Kyle, you and I have had 1,000 of these conversations.
Yeah, right.
Like I should also point out to the listeners, like Kyle is like, I want to bring this up real fast because just recently, within the past week, I was talking to somebody and they were saying that, I hate feeling like I'm getting older because, when you're older, you don't listen to people younger than you, but I'm in that weird age group where they said that people older than me won't listen to me when I have something to say. They asked me if I had that problem. And I was like, well, no. I was like, because one of the most influential people in my life, one of them, which is you, is a couple of years younger than me.
Right.
And you tell me a lot of things, and it's all trial and error. And like, and I report back to you like, hey, this is working. You know, very rarely do I say like, hey, that didn't work for me.
Right.
But I mean, I listen to you. So I think that's
thanks, man.
That's kind of a big thing, is like, I don't care who you are. If I see somebody as passionate as you learning about all these things, and then you come at me with like, hey, try this. It's never, hey, do this, it's going to work. You always tell me, hey, try this.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
And
well,
so,
not everything works for everybody, and you have to be able to assess each individual as an individual. That's everything I do is around like the customized approach of working with the person as the person, not as this is what the textbook says.
So
you know?
where would you begin? Like if I came to you from day one and said, hey, Kyle, how do I recover? Where do you start, and how have you evolved that?
Well, you would definitely have to ask about what you're doing and what actually is wrong with you in terms of injuries, like where the injuries are at. And again, I'm not a physical therapist, so I only understand a little bit. I think mostly what I'm focusing now is resilience opposed to injury. Like you have an injury, now you need to rehabilitate the injury. I'm thinking like, which I've done for myself, but I also only know about the injuries that I've had that I could help with, maybe. Depends, right? But in terms of recovery, right, you have to recover harder than you train, right? Like you got to make recovery a key aspect.
Which sounds weird, because like it's not like you can, in the gym you want to train hard, you can get in, you can go hard, right? But then when you think about how do you go hard recovering, it's kind of a mind-blowing concept.
Yeah, well, okay, everything starts with the nervous system. So you have parasympathetic and sympathetic, and you get yourself amped up, right, into a heavily, I believe, sympathetic state, right? And your like heart rate's up, your nervous system's firing, your muscles are firing, you're on, right? You're on. It's like, think fight or flight, it's fight. Like you're ready to go. And that's the mode that you're at when you're in the gym, when you're training, when your adrenaline's pumping, right? And it's good. That's what gives you energy. It's what cortisol gets released through this process, which is the stress hormone. That cortisol's main job is to help mobilize energy stores, so whether it's glycogen or fat in the body, and that's what helps you fuel yourself through your workout. So that's good, right? That's a good thing. But when you're done, you need to calm down, because what a lot of people do is they fucking go into the gym, they consume a ton of stimulants to help amp them up, which is turned their nervous system on, but artificially, right? And then you leave the gym, and then instead of calming down and letting your body actually start to truly enter recovery state, you are just on the whole time. You go home, you're on, you go to sleep, you barely sleep because you drank caffeine or a pre-workout at 6 o'clock, and
you went out and partied.
Or you went out and partied some dumb shit, right? And then you sleep like shit, you wake up tired, and now your heart rate still is elevated because you didn't sleep well, you're dehydrated, right? Like you're not recovering. Like you blew that workout, now sucks. You put the hard work in the gym, but it's not going to last because you fucked up your recovery. So step 1, get out of the gym. Breathing. Like the second you're done, and I got this from Dr. John Russin, just start breathing.
Slow that heart rate down.
Get that heart rate to drop and get yourself into a recovery mode if you can. And I struggle with this. So look, like again, I just am talking about ideals most of the time. You just try to match them as close as you can.
Yeah, not every day is a perfect day.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not, you can't make everything work. Like my gym doesn't have an area where I can like chillax in the gym, but some gyms do, They have like that side yoga room. Go in there, lay a mat down, and do some box breathing. 4 seconds inhale, 4-second hold at the top, 4 seconds exhale, 4-second hold at the bottom, and just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through the breath, and just do that for a few minutes. Time your heart rate, and again, comes from Dr. John Russin, try to get your heart rate below 120 beats per minute, right? The lower you can, the better, right? But if you could get it low, like under that, then you're going to start to head back into that relaxed state of mind where your nervous system is actually starting to relax, and then your body is not pumping out cortisol, and you're actually starting to repair, right? It starts there for sure. And then the next thing that I do is take magnesium. I take Quad Mag from who makes it, Strength Sensei Nutraceuticals.
And no free ads here.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. Obviously, I don't get paid for that shit. But
No, I was gonna say one of us got to be getting paid. We ain't getting paid.
Yeah, I ain't getting paid. It's just what I
So you
take.
take
But
some
anyways, I
magnesium.
just take a magnesium supplement, but a high quality one that's in the right form. This one's got 4 different types in it because magnesium helps calm the central nervous system. Again, so I do like caffeine before my workouts, and I don't know a whole like. I know enough about this to be dangerous, but I'm not an expert here. But it's just, I know that when I take the magnesium and I drink like some almond milk with chia seeds in it to help replenish the glycogen that I used during that workout, and I work on my breathing, I get out of the gym and I'm like ready to take a nap. And that's how you should feel when you leave the gym. If you're fucking hyped up, you're too hyped up and you're not recovering properly. So you need to calm down. So if you could, and then afterwards, eat the right things. Like most of this comes from the decisions we make in the kitchen, right? Like trying not to be stressed every day, not to be anxious every day. Again, you've got to react to the things that happen to you in a way that doesn't let where you don't feel it physiologically in your body, because that kind of stuff impacts recovery. So that it all starts there, right? It's mostly mindset, right? How you're calming yourself down after the gym. Yeah, I did introduce a little bit of supplementation into there, but that's just not the meat of it. The meat of it is the breathing techniques and the calming yourself down and the not getting stressed out about the little things. So that way your body can actually start to rebuild itself and get out of that fight mode into a relaxed, more chill state. And then you can handle it in your workouts, right? So the way that I view recovery is also like about injury proofing yourself, right? We sit all day. That means your hip flexors are going to get tight and you've got to stretch those hip flexors. You could Google Kelly Starrett, the couch stretch, or kneeling hip flexor stretch. I know the guy, Dr. Aaron Horsching from Squat University, has a bunch of information on that. So those are going to help you with that. And you need to stretch your hips. Like if your hip flexors get tight, your glutes won't fire. If your glutes won't fire, your erector spinae and your QLs in your back are going to take over. You're going to have low back pain, right? And your psoas connect. It's the only muscle that runs through your body. It connects at your lumbar spine and then it connects at the front of your femur, right? So like just below the hip. And like you need to stretch that. It gets tight, and if it gets tight, like I said, your glutes won't fire, your back takes over. That's why so many people have lower back pain, and so much of it is just from sitting a ton. So like I said, those 2 stretches will help you with that. And also, we end up typing a lot, right? That rounds the shoulders. Then you're looking at a bright screen in front of you. You start drawing into the screen and then your head ends up forward. Or we're looking down at our cell phones all day. You end up with rounded shoulders and your head's forward too much. That's also a problem, right? Like you're going to go and try to do movements that you do in the gym, like that you would think are okay for you, and they're not okay for you because your body's just not in an optimal postural position to be able to handle force production in there. Because that's the thing, like we're not just talking about day-to-day life, we're talking about training people, and we train pretty fucking hard, and we know people who train pretty fucking hard. They act like athletes, you know what I mean? And some of them are damn good at it and are at that level. But you have to make sure that everything posturally is okay before you start trying to fucking deadlift huge weight or like go roll competition level aggressively with people. And this is the idea of injury proofing people. So like what that equates to in tangible, something that people can take home is like for every push that you do, so every horizontal pressing movement, like a bench press or a dumbbell press, right? Or like pushing somebody off of you, like framing off of them when you're in side control, right? Like you need to be doing an adequate amount of pulling to help pull those shoulders back in place, activate the muscles in your back that help retract your shoulders. So
the eccentric and eccentric movements.
Yeah, definitely. So like so horizontal pressing, for every rep you do, you should do at least, John Russin will say 2 to 3 reps of pulling in the horizontal plane. So that means like rows opposed to pull-ups, right? So for every rep that you're pressing, you should be pulling 2 times. And that's not like saying like you need to be doing like crazy weights. You could do band pull-aparts, right? Like just something that's easy, just to wake those muscles up and start correcting all of the bullshit that happens when we've been sitting for so many hours a day.
So you do this all post a gym workout?
I do it during my workouts.
Okay, so you get some recovery in during the workouts.
Yes, definitely. Okay, so for example, something that I program into every single person's workout, like if I'm programming your workout, this is going to be in there for sure. If I know you work a desk job or if I know you sit a lot, that means the chances of you experiencing lower cross syndrome, which is like the hip flexors being tight, or upper cross syndrome, which is like everything falling forward and rounding in. If I know that you're in a position where those are highly likely, couch stretch is in there, right? Before you start training. The kneeling hip flexor stretch is in there before you start training, because if I have you doing leg workouts, I need your glutes to work. So I need to make sure your hip flexors are stretched so that way your glutes actually fire properly, right? And it's not about them firing or not firing. It's just about them firing in the proper way and making sure they're not inhibited by the tight synergist, which is the psoas. So that's one part. Then the next part is at the end of every workout, whether you're doing a leg workout or you're doing a chest workout, I'm going to have you doing high face pulls, which is like you're pulling a cable towards your face and doing external rotation of your shoulder, right? And that is in every single workout, no matter what. So I've got people pulling, and it's, again, this is a postural corrective exercise. This is something that you're not supposed to be trying to max out on. You're not trying to hypertrophy. You're just trying to wake those muscles up. You're doing that every day you're in the gym. It's like constant. You're always doing it. So I kind of try to program these in.
I want to point out that like a lot of people, like even myself, and you've had to talk me through this, is like somebody who's just, like me, has kettlebells and just free weights and stuff at your house, is you get stuck in the same routine doing the same, kind of exercises. But then, like you're saying, you got to wake those muscles up because we're not doing like those resistant bands training. So since like you and I've had talks, I have resistance bands to do some of these things to really work on the joints and protect the joints, and not even half the time I forget that it's for posture too. And I'm still like, even though I do it, I'm still guilty of slouching the shoulders and maybe sitting too long throughout the day. So like, trying to explain like to somebody's listening, and let's say they do some of these lifts and things I do, and you kind of do the same things, the kettlebell swings. You have to remember that even though like you're doing like some body weight stuff or some resistance band stuff, you're doing it more to wake up the rest of the part of your body that you're not used to using. And that's kind of that right there to me is what separates somebody who's excited to work out and stay fit, but they just don't know what they're doing and they haven't done the research. Like that is what I want people to kind of focus in on is wake those parts up, get some bands, get something that, you can do some resistance to help with your posture. It's not like you're going to, you're not buying a bunch of weights to get stronger there. You're just, like you're saying, you're waking it up.
Yeah. Most of this can be done with resistance bands. I mean, the programming that I'm doing right now has that in it as well. And again, the goal is sometimes the goal is definitely build muscle. Like it's always good.
Which it'll do.
Yeah, it will do a little bit, but the main thing is to just keep those muscles alive. Like, because when you sit all day,
if you don't
your
use
shoulders
it,
will get frozen. Yeah, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. I mean, like you'll literally, Emily was telling me that one of her coworkers can't even put on his coat and he's in his 50s because his shoulder blades are frozen from too much pronation. His shoulders are rounded forward. Yeah, he's hunched over. He's on the computer all fucking day, constantly, and probably slouching in a car, on planes, traveling. Like you can't work 8, 9, 10, 11 hours seated and then expect an hour every 3 days a week to fix that. Like this needs to become something that you address actively, right? You can't passively just think that these things are going to go away. They're not. They're going to get worse. I had low back pain when I was at my first job. And this is before I really got like balls deep into this stuff. I had bad low back pain. I was thinking that I had issues like you had with herniated discs. I thought that I needed a new mattress. I thought that that I was broken, and now I have almost no back pain. 99.99% of the time I don't have it. The times that I do have it is because I'm just being lazy and forgetting about my posture, or I just laid on my stomach for too long because sleeping for me had a lot to do with it. And also
so you're a stomach sleeper?
I was, and then I was a side sleeper, and that's a whole nother topic. I don't know much about it.
Let's get back into recovery. Like, what do you think about lacrosse balls, foam rollers, and then go into sleep?
Okay, so awesome. I do really
and stretching. Don't forget stretching. Do you?
Yeah.
I
do some stretching, but I only stretch muscles that need it. Like my hip flexors, because we sit all day, those need it. Some people's pecs get really tight because their shoulders are rounded too often. So you might have to do some pec stretching and stuff like that. The balls, like the lacrosse balls, massage balls, like all that, I love them. I use them all the time. Like if I have a muscle that's too tight or is like always tense, I'll use it to relax it. It's not the ball that relaxes it though. It's the breathing. Like you have to breathe when you're doing that stuff, because the point of using those is not that you're going to work a knot out of your body. Like that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you're putting pressure to a spot that is too tight. It definitely is going to fucking hurt. And if it's not, like you're fine. You shouldn't be in that spot, but you find the spot that sucks. And then you need to think about, I like to close my eyes, think about that muscle, and then breathe into the muscle. Long, deep breaths. You could do the box breathing here, but you need to, all you're doing is calling mental attention to that area with pressure, right? And you're just thinking about that area. And when you call attention to it, then it'll start to relax. But it is a neurological thing that's happening. The balls and the foam rollers, they just help you do that, right? So like, it makes sense. Like foam rolling is a global one. You're going to use that on big muscle groups like your back and your legs. And the balls are smaller ones. Like that's how you're going to get into the deep cervical, like flexors and extensors of your neck and stuff like that. So they definitely have purpose for sure. But those, as well as massage and Epsom salt baths and stuff like that, are kind of like passive recovery techniques. They'll work, but they're not going to fix you. To fix you, you need to correct the reason that those issues happen in the first place, which is active recovery. It's kind of what physical therapy is built around. One day I would love to go back to school for physical therapy. I think it's, or kinesiology, something along the lines of like human movement or correcting some of these issues that have happened. But you need some active rehabilitation drills in your programming. That's what the band pull-aparts are. That's what the high face pulls are. That's what I think the like psoas and hip flexor stretches are, right? And you have to hang out in these positions and it sucks. Like it doesn't feel good, but it does help. I know it because I've done it, you know? And it's this combination of using both. Like the active recovery stuff, like addressing weak links in the kinetic chain and fixing it during strategic programming is definitely going to help you more than the soft tissue mobility work, but they're both good. Do both of them. If you get relief from the soft tissue work, you should definitely be doing it, but you can't do only that and think that it's going to solve the problem, because even if you fix it, it's only going to be temporary and it's going to come back, and it could come back worse because you didn't really fix the problem. You just sort of like solved the symptoms, right? This is what I'm talking about. Like, your shoulders round forward, you end up pulling some muscle in your back, doing some shit you shouldn't have been doing because you didn't address the problem from the beginning. Yeah, you can take a break, not use the muscle, do some massage techniques, like do some gua sha scraping, do some rolling on your phone, like your ball, get a massage, go get some ART work done. Yeah, you'll feel great. But the second you go back to that exercise with a moderate amount of an intensity under a fatigued state, you're going to re-injure yourself immediately, and you've got to address the problem from the root cause. And that is intelligent programming should have that type of stuff in it, right? Already thinking about this, already asking, how have you injured yourself before? What's your lifestyle like? And foreseeing these things. And I'm not an expert at this, but I understand that, right? And I'm looking for those types of things when I do this. And that's how I'm thinking about each individual person is like, you know, Dr. John Russin's like, yeah, you can be strong, but you need to be fucking human first, right? You need to be able to go downstairs or be standing for a period of time without your fucking back hurting, like screaming at you. You know what I mean? And I think that that's extremely important.
Yeah, because a lot of this is based around functional movements, and we forget that, you know, because most people that listen to this are athletes of some sort, you know, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whatever you're into, but like we forget that, yeah, we do other things outside of our sport, and your back or your legs or your arms or your neck shouldn't be hurting when you're just standing there, or when you're, you know, mowing the lawn or doing something. You know, that's the whole point of it's functional movement, and then building for that. And then, you know, like you're saying, if you have that desk job, you don't want to be all hunched over. You don't want to be a hunchback when you're 50, 60, 70. Mm-hmm. So I think that we all get lost in that. But how big are you? Have you dove into sleep yet? And like that, like the new science that's coming out about that?
Oh yeah, I mean a little bit, because I've always slept like shit, honestly, and sleep is like the main recovery tool. Like yeah, okay, the parasympathetic breathing techniques that come after training, like I said, those are very important. They are very important. You have to calm down, but like recovery happens during the nighttime, right? Like a lot of our testosterone is released during that time, growth hormone, like that's when the repair's happening. So sleep is fucking crucial. So like I only know certain things. So like steps that I've taken to enhance and optimize my sleeping pattern is I have blackout shades in the room. That's awesome. Should be super dark, right? Like, the MacBooks, when you close them, that white light that is in the front of it. Like I used to like do some research at night and stuff like that. And now I'm like covering up that white light, right? I shouldn't even be looking at the screens at night, right? They say that if you really want to have good sleep, you should spend the last 3 hours of your evening away from all screens, TVs and phones. That's hard.
Which is most people's evenings after work.
Exactly. Mine too. I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a ton of room to improve in this particular category, but you really shouldn't be sleeping with a screen like 3 hours before.
No TVs on.
One thing that I did, though, to help mitigate that is I went to Felix Gray and I got some blue blocking glasses. They're nighttime ones. They're not all yellow and weird like some blue blocking glasses are, because blue light will kill melatonin production. Your body naturally releases melatonin as you're getting ready for sleep. You fall asleep and then your body dumps cortisol on you to help wake you up, because it helps. That's the hormone that helps you mobilize energy. So it wakes you up. It's also why caffeine doesn't work right away in the morning. You should wait 2 hours before you have your first coffee, because your body's already has cortisol and caffeine attached to the same receptors in the brain. So if you wait 2 hours to have your coffee, it'll work way better and you'll feel less tired in the coming mornings. So that's one piece, but
definitely something I'm going to try.
Yeah. But the blue, the blue glasses help, man. Like, cause the sun's supposed to go down. We're not supposed to have any artificial light except like candle or fire coming in. And then, but we do. We turn the lights on. You look at your screens. So I just wear those glasses and they really help. And then I get into my room. I like it very cold, and the dark shades keep most of the light out. I like it to be as dark as possible. And then, okay, if you sleep on your stomach, your back is in an overextended state. You're arching your back, right? Like it's
concaving in.
Yeah, exactly. Your tummy's dropping to the like middle of the bed. So that'll cause low back pain. So next logical step is to sleep on your side. Well, when you sleep on your side, people tend to be single side sleepers. People gravitate towards a single side. Well, the side that's up towards the ceiling, right, is shortened. You're literally shortening your obliques and your lats on that side, and that hip is hiked higher than the bottom hip. So you end up with a hip imbalance, which can manifest as to one leg being longer than the other, right? You end up putting more pressure on one leg than you do on the other, means that the other one's not going to have proper firing patterns when it comes to fucking squatting. So you have to either consciously balance out which side you sleep on, right? And understand which side is tighter. Like, and I was a huge victim of this, man. Like I would always sleep on my, I'm trying to think, on my left side, right? And it caused my right side to get shorter. I went and got an x-ray at a chiropractor and my right hip was higher, right? That was a huge pain in the ass, to start addressing that. So it's like best to just lay on your back with your hands on your belly,
your stomach or your chest.
Yep, on your belly or your chest, or like underneath your pillow and behind your head, right? Some of us like to sleep like that. So like underneath the pillow and behind the head. And so I try to sleep like that, but it's difficult.
Ooh, that sounds brutal on the shoulders.
I mean,
like I just feel like my arms would just go numb.
Yeah, mine do sometimes. I mean, but I don't know. I gravitate towards this position because again, my pecs might be a little too tight.
But hang on, let's speed this up because I got a couple more things I want to ask you, and we're almost out of time. How long do you try to sleep? Like how many hours?
I think that like sleep cycles are 90 minutes, so you should sleep in 90-minute increments. So like the whole idea of 8 hours a night doesn't make any sense. Maybe if you're factoring in 8 hours and it takes you 30 minutes to go to sleep, you can hit 7.5 because that's an even like 90-minute cycle. Everybody's going to fluctuate from the 90 minutes though. Like some of these are going to be a little higher, some people are going to be a little lower. But if you could find your area, like have lately been doing like 7.5 hours. I get up, I'm good to go. But if I'm not going to do 7.5, I try to give myself 9 because that's the next chunk of time. So that's it. But like 9 hours you should be getting. Like, it depends on your recovery though. Like, and when you're overtrained and overworked, and if you need more sleep than not.
Nine is what I've been trying to do lately, and I think that it's actually the best, because I'm somebody who used to operate on low amounts of sleep and thought I operated pretty
optimally, and
optimally.
now you don't.
But now I'm just like, I really enjoy that 9, and now when I don't get that 9, I feel kind of cranky a little bit. But
right. So, but if not 9, then 7.5.
Yeah.
Like don't be like, I'm gonna do 8.5 hours. Like, you're gonna wake up in the middle of a sleep cycle and feel like total dog shit.
Yeah.
So like,
see, another one I've been focusing on, because I've heard that this is more because I was reading an article about depression, and I'm trying to remember where it's a scientific journal. I'm trying to remember where I read it, but anyway, it was saying it's not when you go to bed every night, it's when you wake up. You should wake up at the same time every day, regardless whether you slept 8 hours, 7 hours, whatever, 10 hours. If you wake up every day at 6 a.m., make sure even on the weekends you're waking up at 6 a.m.
Right, or
it doesn't matter if
right.
you go to bed at 9, 10, or 11. And it's all that, because going to bed's always going to fluctuate. Whether you go to the gym one night, you get home later. Whether you go out to dinner, or maybe you're at home all night and you go to bed earlier. It's just this is just talking about depression only. It's like, make sure you wake up at the same time, even on the weekends, even if you're out acting a fool partying, or even if you're, at home having a casual
I do think
evening.
that you should try to go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time, because you have a circadian rhythm that is genetic. You can't change it, right? Like, I don't give a shit what anybody says. There's enough research on that. Like, you can't change it. So it'll shift though throughout your life, to be fair. But you should go to sleep at the same time and wake up at the same time. I try to wake up very close to the same time every single day, and I do succeed. And I try to go to bed between 10 and 11 every night, and I do succeed with that.
Are you good on the weekends? Because most people fall apart on the weekends.
I'm probably best
on the weekends.
Yeah, I go out to breakfast.
It's like obligations are different.
I go out to breakfast. I have one rest day on the weekends where I might fuck off and have some pancakes or something like that. But for the most part, like the weekends are my favorite times, because I have the most energy to put towards my training. So like, weekends are leg days, that's how that works for me. But I really don't fall off. I'm pretty like, I've been told that I'm a psychopath about it. I go to bed really strictly, wake up fairly strictly. I am like, I don't drink, I don't eat like shit because I can't. And it ends up working out. But I put in a ton of hours into the gym and into my training, but
yeah,
not really.
Real quickly, within a couple of minutes, what does the future look like for you? Are you doing more certifications? Do you want to do school again, like you kind of hinted at? Like, what is the future? What's the next what's the next 1 year look like for you?
Well, I already signed up for the National Strength and Conditioning Association's Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification, which is like the gold standard of certifications if you want to get into a performance facility. It's kind of like not even the gold standard, it's almost like the bare minimum. So it's kind of like the most obvious next step, right? Is this. So I've already got the study materials. I'm going to be studying for that aggressively as I was for the NASM, and try to get this as fast as possible. And then immediately I'm going to jump in to another one that's either movement related through like Kelly Starrett and Mobility WOD, or something that's nutrition focused, because it is definitely a weak link in my game, and I feel like people want that type of advice. I'm going to try to start doing some personal training with in-person clients. I'm already working with online clients, so it's a shameless plug. If anybody needs anything, you can get at me on my Instagram, which is at Kymora, KYMORA _10P. So you could find me on there. Just DM me if you're interested. But I do fully customized plans for people online. I'm working with a couple people at the gym. Like one dude plays basketball, does grappling, and he wanted to put on 10 pounds. So I set him up with like a strength gain / strength and hypertrophy program. He's already messaged me saying that his vertical has improved in his basketball game, which is awesome, right? Like, that's the sports
you want
performance
to see improvements,
there.
yeah.
Yep, exactly. So I'm really happy about that, and happy that he's seeing results and taking it seriously. So online training, in-person training, and then once I start rolling in the certifications and getting this experience, I'll eventually make my way over to a performance facility and then really start working with some athletes.
Okay, that's awesome. To end this episode, I got this new segment called Hype or Not Hype. So I'm going to ask you a couple of them. So the premise behind it is basically, it's pretty much based off one word, and you if you say it's hype, you have to explain why, or if you say it's not hype, you have to explain why.
Okay.
And you got to do it kind of condensed, like within
fast,
60 seconds.
rapid fire.
Yeah, more like you got 60 seconds. So you got a little bit of time. But the first question of the hype or not hype is CrossFit. Is it hype or not hype?
It's hype with a caveat. It's hype because it brings intensity to the fitness world, which is good because some people are lazy as fuck with their workouts and they need to be aggressive. I say it's not hype-ish because you aren't really focusing on the eccentric portion of the lifts, which is the portion that you need to focus on if you're trying to prevent injury. So you do see some injuries, not with maybe the highest athletes, but you do see injuries in the CrossFit world. So hype though, overall.
So you're a fan. You're a fan just because it does bring light to lifting and intensity, and just it brings a fan base to people being active. I get it. Yeah. So and then the second hype or not hype is eating no matter what your diet is. So like being structurally with whatever it is your diet is, eating 2 hours before, is it better for you before your workout, or 2 hours or within 2 hours after? Which one's more important, and which one's hype or not hype, before or after?
After is for sure hype. You have to refuel after, period. If you don't,
even if it's outside of your eating window, I'm throwing that one in there for me.
Oh, because you do the intermittent fasting.
Yes, sir.
I'm not a huge fan of intermittent fasting. Not hype on intermittent fasting.
Hey, that wasn't a question. We'll get to that.
I'm
after
not a huge
this
fan
podcast.
of it,
But so eating, so you don't do the window. So just make sure you eat after.
Dude, I'm in weight gain world, bro. I eat before and after working out for sure. Like I consume, I have to eat in all times of the day constantly, from the second I wake up to the second I go to bed. So all of it's hype for me. But for most people, like you need fuel to go into your workout. So you should have something beforehand. But you have to eat after. Like you have to. Because you have to replenish the energy that you used, and if you want to start recovering, like you've got to be eating. So
what do you do? Do you do carbs? Are you big on carbs?
Yeah, a ton, but just white rice or highly cyclic. I don't even know the name of it, but it's like a fast form of fast release carbs that I do pre-workout. The thing is I'm the type of person where my nervous system can get too amped up, and if I give myself carbs, it can actually kind of calm me down in the workout. So I do like to use some pre-workout and intra-workout carbohydrates, which is just like a drink for me. But yeah, I've had a lot of results with that. Hype
for the after, not the before as much, more the after. Dude, I just want to say, man, thank you again for coming on.
Dude, thank you for having me.
I'm proud of you because you always say like, hey, I'm going to do this. And when you say something, you actually do it. And I think that's, a huge merit to you, and people should hit you up for sure because, I mean, for as much great advice you give me, like, not only working out, but they're like, sometimes if I'm having like a tough time, like I'll just hit you up for some life advice and things like that. And I mean, I probably owe you, thousands of dollars for everything you've ever.
Not at all, man. Not at all.
For what you've given me. But, everybody, this has been another great episode. I love sitting down talking to this man. He's an amazing human, and I can't wait. And I want you to put out a book one day. I want that on record.
Oh yeah. I mean one day, but I got to actually have my thing. Before
I'm talking
I do
like
it.
10 years from now.
It'll happen. But
I'm talking at least 10 years from now.
Yeah,
I want something.
It's in the cards for me. I feel like I'm able to produce that type of content. I want to be worthy of doing it,
Nah, I get you. All right, brother. I appreciate you. This is episode.
See everybody.
Episode 43 of Head Kick Radio. We out.
Say hello to the stars of